right, welcome to this episode of our show, True Data Ops. I'm your host, Kent Graziano, the Data Warrior. In each episode, we'll bring you a podcast covering all things data ops with the people that are making data ops what it is today. So my special guest today is Snowflake data superhero, certified Data Vault 2 practitioner, automation expert, runs a couple of user groups, and VP of data management for the Eon Collective, not the Borg. It's the Eon Collective. It's a little bit different. Keith Belanger. Welcome to the show, Keith.
Thanks for having me, Kent. That's a lot of points there, but I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, it was good to see you. 2 weeks ago we were
Yeah,
in Vermont at the
Vermont.
WWDVC. But now we're back to the virtual
The
world
virtual world.
that we all live in. So for the folks that are new and may not have run across you in all your various roles, can you give us a little bit of background about what
Yeah,
you've been doing?
yeah. So just a little go back. I've been doing data warehousing for over 27 years, and most of that had been doing in the Kimball methodology, and then I think as many people over the years has come to realize, as we've gained more and more source systems and we've gained more and more velocity. You started looking at what's another. There's gonna be another way of doing this. Found out and learned about Data Vault, and then started getting it. And now with the data modernization, started getting into Snowflake. So I've spent the last probably 5 years or so into more the going towards the cloud-based solutions in Data Vault, and helping organizations with Data Vault implementations or assessing their existing Data Vaults to help them in terms of their new modernization solutions. So yeah, that's been a quick rundown of my last 27 years or so.
That's that's pretty quick. That's the quickest compression of 27 years I think I've heard on this show. So
and I've had just about
awesome.
every role from developer to a DBA to data architect. So I've gotten to learn all of the things. So now hopefully being able to take all that experience and help organizations with their journeys. So
Right, and obviously, I guess these days most of what you're doing is on Snowflake. That's why you're a Snowflake data superhero.
yeah, Snowflake is definitely the primary. I mean, I think probably over 90% of the projects working on at this point are pretty much been Snowflake, and same thing with over the years. So have definitely really ventured into learning a lot about Snowflake over the years, and from a personal perspective, it's I've definitely got a little bit of a passion and appreciation, and really enjoy working with Snowflake just because of all the years doing data warehousing. It always seemed like I was trying to fit the warehousing to the technology versus the technology being beneficial to doing warehousing. It's like, oh, here's something that really fits to what we're needing to do, and they're just constantly making it better and better. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's like Benoit and Terry actually thought about that when they designed
Yes,
Snowflake.
yes, yes.
They weren't thinking about Data Vault, but they were thinking about
Or
data warehousing. worked out,
exactly,
worked
and
out
all
good
of
for a
the
lot of us.
exactly all of instead of trying to, hey, let's fit this into an OLTP type of database, let's actually use a database for doing analytics. So it's great.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, we were all in Stowe, Vermont, at the Snowflake Lodge there for the annual Worldwide Data Vault Consortium, or
Yep.
WWDVC.
You
For
see.
those of you looking at my shirt there, WWDVC. That this was the conference T-shirt that we all got. Give me your thoughts a little bit about what were some of the hot topics we were running into there.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this year's session, and those who weren't there, I kind of missed out. I thought it was definitely one of the better years that we had. I have a very huge passion, a personal passion about around data modeling. So it was great having conversations around data modeling. We had Doug had talked about it, and then that whole we had a whole day on just talking about that. I really enjoyed that. I thought Cindy's discussion on how data mesh and data vault kind of the overlap between that really was great, because obviously many organizations talking about data mesh, and thinking that you got to come up with a whole new way of doing things, but yet how Data Vault in that aspect fits, and even from automation. So the hands-on of the different solutions, getting to play with different technologies that you don't get to experience every day, and of course my my brain starts, you start saying, oh, I could do that with that one. Or, boy, if I could tie that one to that one. So it starts getting really interesting and understanding how all these tools and technologies and where we're coming. Obviously, the conversations around um, AI and the role, I think that's really getting big
Yeah.
conversations like where's that going in the industry. So yeah, so many great topics. I really enjoyed the week. I was definitely mentally exhausted by the end of the week, but it was a good time. So
Yeah, yeah, no, I thought on the AI topic was really interesting. Helly from
yeah,
Finland, her talk on data quality, and while we've talked about the need for data quality and QA in the data warehousing world for 30 years at least.
yeah,
Her point was that, yeah, if we're going to use the data to feed AI and machine learning algorithms, well, then we better be sure it's good data because the machines don't know. Good,
yep,
we're back to the old adage, garbage in, garbage out, except this time it's like garbage in, garbage out magnified by like 1,000-fold with
yep,
potentially dire consequences because the machine's making decisions based on that data you gave them. At least, when
yep,
we are doing just BI dashboards, it's like, okay, a human can look at that and go, that doesn't look right. I don't know that if I want to make my decision based on that data. The machine doesn't
yep,
know. That's why
right,
it's called machine learning. And
learning,
if you give the machine bad data, it makes decisions and it learns
bad,
wrong bad things. So it's like,
right,
yeah, that's pretty important. So this whole testing thing is really, that raised it up another level for me, hearing her
yeah.
talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, when I started doing warehousing, right? We're like, hey, we're refreshing the data once a month. Oh, now we're doing it once a week. Now, if it's not happening at sub-second, speed, and then the decisions are being made so quickly after that, like, yeah, having that data quality, it's starting to get more and more. I mean, governance and data quality, right? The importance of that, to my perspective, is just getting elevated and exponentially becomes more important.
Yeah.
You can't say, "Oh, I have 30 days now to look at this data to make a decision." No, you have minutes. So, yep,
Yeah. Well, and the other thing about the conference, of course, we had the founding, one of the founding fathers of relational, right?
yeah,
CJ Date, Chris
yeah,
Date, actually coming and giving us a 2 hour talk about the history of relational and what
yep,
he and Cod were doing and what they were thinking. That was fascinating. And then having Bill Inman, the father of data warehousing, is like,
yep,
having all that in one place, and folks, it was like 160 people at this conference at
yep,
a lovely location in Stowe, Vermont. So if you have any interest, you don't even have to be a Data Vault advocate really to get something out of this particular conference.
right,
The speakers are just mind blowing.
yeah,
So beginning of May 2024, I'm sure it'll still be in Stowe, Vermont. www.dvc.com. So write that down. Remember that for next year.
yeah. Like I said, being a passionate modeler for many years, that's how I got into data. That was like the best day. I actually ordered his book while he was talking. I'm like, I got to dive into this a bit more. Like you said, it's wasn't just for data vault, just data management and data modeling in general it was a great day. So, yeah,
Yeah, Volker. Hope we will see you next year. Yeah,
yeah,
had a pretty good contingent from Europe, but not everybody made it again this year. But hopefully
yep,
we'll see more. Best turnout we've ever had though. 100,
yeah,
160 folks, and like you said, all the vendors and getting hands on with the tools that support it was pretty good.
yeah.
So we've both seen an uptick in data vault implementations, and I think the fact that the conference was bigger than it's ever been is more evidence of that. What do you make of that? Why are so many people now starting to look at things like data vault?
I, I mean, I've been expecting it to start getting momentum as more and more, I would say, prominent organizations and people start to realize and understand, hey, there is value here. This does work when you're doing it right, and you get that aha moment. And I think you're getting more and more organizations that don't want to be the first to try it, but as they're seeing others that are leveraging it, I think the fact that Snowflake has a user group around it, I think that Snowflake has blogs on it, they're really from their perspective. I think Snowflake is even quote unquote bought into it and said, "Hey, this is a way to go, right?" And now those capabilities, so it's not like this. it's less foreign, I think, or niche. I think you're starting to see it being, and to me, once you realize it really is the only solution that can keep up with what you need to do today with the multiple systems, the multiple types of data, the speed, like to go to the speed of business. It just, from my perspective, it just makes sense, and I think others are. It's kind of like, well, now starting to jump on that train, and I'm just hoping it even gets more and more momentum. So,
Yeah, yeah, no, I think yeah, in my time at Snowflake, started out with nobody at Snowflake really knowing what Data Vault was. Wrote a couple of blogs, and then we started getting customers calling and asking about it. And with the technology, the platform, the
yep,
Snowflake, the Data Cloud platform, enabled so much that. Some of the worries that people had about Data Vault, always say, "Oh, it's too many tables. The joins will never perform. It takes too long to perform its tune." Well, that it was no longer an issue, and the ability to approach the program differently
yep,
with the data modeling and the iterative approach and all of that. Okay, now it's feasible because we're able to get the performance with the
right,
joints, and so that particular objection went away. And like you said, I think part of the as Snowflake became more popular and more organizations, bigger organizations got onto it, and then some of the bigger organizations started doing Data Vault. They
yep,
got, like you said, it became more visible. It's been around
yep,
for over 20 years, but yeah, it ended up being kind of niche for sure. And once it kind of got a little more publicity, and people, it's just random webinars you're watching, and somebody goes, "Oh, and we're doing Data Vault right on
right.
Snowflake." It's like, what? Wait, what?
Yeah,
What was that?
what?
You see this
Yeah,
architecture diagram, it says Data Vault in the middle, and it's all this Snowflake and all this stuff. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Now it's just kind of people just mention it.
yep.
Uh,
And
so
I've even seen that it's some organizations, their way to go even to the cloud, like to go to a Snowflake and get off of their on-prem system. So a lot of large organizations have even been slower in that space. So I think even that's, with more going on to Snowflake. So yeah, yep.
yeah, yeah, we got somebody just mentioning Data Vault 2 works best on Snowflake on top of JSON. Man, we could do an entire show. Actually, I've done entire webinars on that by itself. So yeah, those of you who are interested in that sort of thing, if you go out and go to my blog, kentgraziano.com, and go on to the Snowflake resources page, there's a list of everything I've done. There's a book on JSON.
Yep,
There's webinars on doing in JSON and doing Snowflake Snowflake and Data Vault, and how to, one of the patterns for including JSON in a Data Vault design. So
yep.
we could go on forever
We
on
go
that.
for a whole another one. Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's like hours and hours. So so this is the Data Ops podcast. So I do have to ask, in your mind, what's Data Ops, and how does it fit into this Data Vault 2 approach that we've been talking about?
Yeah. So I came across data ops actually at WWDVC last year.
Ah,
Um, and I was introduced to it, and I kind of dug into it. And to me, it's we talk about data vault. We talk about automation, right? Automation is a huge part of being able to deliver a data vault, and just to need data modernization solutions today. And but in the past, like, oh, if I wanted to do and leverage zero copy cloning, or making sure I'm using the RBAC properly, or how do I put my data structures through a what a developer's typical CI/CD process, right? All of that in a Snowflake perspective was, you have to build it or do it manually. It was time consuming to say, how do I get data ops out of the box, basically, and automated all of that, right? So on day one, you're doing your dev to QA to production. You're doing the branching. It's managing. It's leveraging, which I think is great, the features of Snowflake in a way to give you that um, speed to market, right? It's leveraging zero copy cloning, right, in your development, in your QA, in an appropriate way. So in the when I've brought it in, everything that we do and have done in Snowflake is, handled as code, much like you would do with your development lifecycle in a DevOps, right? So when you're looking to do automation, a lot of the automation, data vault automation tools will do they'll generate your ELT, right, in that part of the data vault. But what about the rest of it? Getting all that code and getting all that data into Snowflake, and then managing it. And when we talk about Snowflake and we start talking about, cost management, are you using virtual warehouses the proper way? Are you using, like, I've seen organizations physically cloning data to do their development, right?
Yeah.
This just said, okay, let's help protect you from yourself, right? And letting a product like DataOps manage that DataOps, pipeline. And to me, that just brought an additional aspect of automation to get that time to market versus I got to build an orchestration solution. I got to build a CI/CD pipeline for my DDL. How am I going to handle my QA and making sure that the grants when I do the zero copy clone are handled? It just goes on and on. Those things you'd have to manage without a data ops solution.
Yeah, and I think just to be clear, you're specifically talking about the DataOps.live platform
Right.
itself, that
Yep.
has all of these features,
Yep.
and making this stuff available. Yeah,
Exactly.
and,
Yep.
and on
Exactly.
on Snowflake, yes, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and so. Do you think it's actually possible for organizations to deliver value at the speed we're being requested to, if you're not being agile or using some form of this kind of data ops, and we'll say a data ops in quotes,
Right.
automation?
I don't think so. I mean, I think your business will get frustrated with IT, right? If you're not bringing some type of automation capabilities to the table, right? The whole point of being agile, right, is that, hey, let's pick in a sprint, we should be constantly bringing business value with every sprint, right? And in order to do that, I would call it the mundane tasks, right? The other, you know, you need to get those out of the way and be automated. Getting organizations to understand to invest in sometimes automation can be, the nature of many developers was, I want to build that, right? I can build that. That sounds fun, right? But we do this for the right. We say this all the time, right? We're in this game for the business, right? Not for the sake of IT getting to do kinds of really neat things, right? And yeah, we want to be innovative, but in order to meet the business needs, we got to be agile, we got to be automated. And whether you're trying to build an automation solution yourself, or you know more and more, there are more and more solutions now coming out on the market, that I just think, if in order to be going at the speed of business, automation is key for sure.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I think that, I mean, the whole Monday track at the Data Vault conference even was focused on this business value conversation, because as technologists we often get what you just said. You get developers and engineers. Basically, it's like, name that tune. I can build that code in 4 lines,
Right.
right? Yes, but how long is it going to take you to maintain it? Oh,
Yep.
okay, yeah, I can deliver. I can have that code written in 1 hour, but yeah, how long will it take before it actually works?
Right. And now what I find is like, well, you know not a single automation tool will bring it end to end. So now I tend to work with developers and say, well, we have a bridge a gap between this automation tool and this automation tool. That's where we want to, let's invest. How do we make this tool and this tool play nice together? Go from
Right.
their API to their API versus let's build our own, other product as something that's on the market. So, yeah.
Yeah. So we step up a level and talk about the philosophy of true data ops, and then we've got 7 pillars there. I wanted to get your kind of review on which of those do you, I'll say, I guess, align with the most, or think are the most critical uh, for being successful.
Well, if we look at all seven, you can sit there and say, well, they're all, there's reason why they're on
Well,
the
of course,
list,
yeah,
right? They're
right,
all
yeah,
there.
they're all required. Yes.
But if I was to pick one that I've seen recently that really, I would say automation is helped, and it's to me in the environment management side of things, right? In terms of, I've seen organizations struggle in, how do I manage between the dev and my QA, and getting that code to really go. And that's why, even when I was looking at DataOps.live, is I can now automate that. So to me, I saw that with organizations, they would trip on that aspect of it. Right, we get the great, we've generated our code, whether it be Data Vault code or general ELT code, and now I need to get it out there, and you know that part also slowing down the process, because I got to send the DDL to the DBA, and the DBA is going to run the DDL, and then I get somebody else, and it's just, I think now that being able to with a DataOps.live type scenario and automation around the environment management, it it doesn't become as a stumbling block, right? So you almost take like the continuous integration and the environment management, kind of from my perspective, are ones that I've seen lately that I think um, can trip an organization up if you don't have the right processes in play. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. One of the other ones, again, based on Helly's talk, the whole automated testing and monitoring. Right.
yep,
On top of that, it's like you talk about automating the environment management and all that, and deploying the DDL and all of that. Well, if we don't actually test what we're
test
deploying,
it.
then the possibility of these things falling apart, even with automation,
Yep,
are probably we're probably magnifying it. I guess. I mean, it's the agile fail fast, right?
yeah,
We're doing things a lot faster, so yeah, I guess that means we could have more failures faster. So how do you manage that in a data ops life cycle, right?
right. Yeah. Yeah, and seeing now even some of the projects I'm on is you're embedding that testing. We talked about the environment management and the CI/CD, but embedding that testing within that, right? So that it's not a reactionary thing that you're doing, but it's a proactive thing that you're doing as part of your life cycle. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard to pick that either because they're all seven are important when you look at them. You're like, well, yeah, but I need that and I need that. So, but it really is key to all of these for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and it harkens back to the days of test driven development. You remember that, right? And it's
Yes.
like, but now we're finally getting it into the data world, because that's always been a question. It's like, well, how do I test my ETL? Well, okay, well, we don't do ETL, we do ELT for one.
Yeah.
It makes it a little bit easier, right? We're doing it
Yeah.
in the database. Um, but you have to think through the process, right? Is what are we trying to accomplish, and what value are we trying to deliver, and what are our metrics for that? How do we know that we're doing it,
Yep.
and how do we know we're providing good quality data? um, and it's interesting because it's automated testing and monitoring, because one of the things that can happen, as you know, is your things can go wrong in your feeds. So
Mhm.
you might not be deploying anything new, but how do you know everything's running the way it's supposed to run? How do you
Right.
know that you're getting the data you think you're supposed to get? That one of
Yep.
your sources didn't go belly up, and you're expecting a terabyte of data and it doesn't show up. Right?
Yep.
Is there a process in place to check that and make
Yep.
sure, like you said, people want things like in practically nanoseconds now. They're near
Yep.
real time. um, and somebody goes and runs a report. It's like, well, that doesn't look right.
Yep.
Where's my data? Oh crap!
Yep.
Nobody noticed that this big load didn't run. Well, they didn't have any automated monitoring going on. The
Yep.
observability part piece wasn't there.
Yep. And somebody had mentioned in the chat, right, JSON, and as more and more sources are coming in with these, semi-structured things, they're not getting those hard rule checks in part of that quality as well. Like I've seen dates, it's supposed to be a date, but it's not a properly formatted date, right? And you want to know that before somebody goes to use it, that that's not a properly formatted date. So in that, right, that automated testing and that monitoring, it's like when that data is coming in, is it as a date, is an integer, is a, those types of things I've seen. If you're trying to look at it when the business is going to use it, you might be too late. So yeah, that data quality is definitely and it's just not like the valid values, but is the data type and the
Yeah.
quality of that data good. Yep.
Data type. Yeah, that's kind of a key. Yes. So somebody altered the source system, and it went from being a number to a date, or a date to a number. And in this case, like you said, with JSON, there's no controls like that at all.
Right.
It's all technically character string data. And if the format's not right, you may have the, like you said, the data type conversion in there where it's
Right.
supposed to be a date. That key is supposed to be a date, but it's not, right, because
Right.
something's not right. Yeah, no, that's
Yep.
that is kind of a critical piece, and I think that's where the whole schema on read, we don't need no stinking data model stuff kind of
Yes.
fell apart, right?
When I go with my, I learned relational modeling was the first thing I ever did, right? Referential integrity and all of that stuff. And as you've gone to some of these semi-structured things, the referential integrity has gone away, and some of that stuff is some of those things you didn't worry about because you couldn't insert data into a table if it didn't have the right data type. well, now you can, and so those are back to that testing. Is you got to look for that type of stuff now, because eventually, if you want to put it into a structured table, you can't load something with month 13 right into a data type of. And I found people just put string. Oh, let's just load into a string. Well, you just push the problem down the
Further down,
down
you're
the
right.
down the track. So yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah. The date
maybe
math is not going to work if it's a string.
exactly.
Yeah, well, and luckily Snowflake has functions in their, I'll call it the JSON SQL aspect of Snowflake that allow you to test those sorts of things as
Yep.
well. If you, but that does mean, wow, you've got to have a data model because you have to know your data. At
Yep.
some point, you have to look at that, even if it is JSON, to look at what is there, what's supposed to be there. And again, we're talking about delivering business value.
Yep.
Is the data there that the business needs?
Yep.
And throwing in some of these data ops principles of how are we going to make sure that that's right.
Correct.
All very important. So quick, people, processes, and technology, we talked about that a lot 2 weeks ago. It's like, what do you think is really the biggest barrier for organizations to be successful today out of those?
Well, I'm going to start with people. And then obviously, because sometimes the people can get in, you can get into the politics of an organization, right? In terms of, so sometimes in to even deliver a I'll just go with Data Vault. If you want to do the Data Vault methodology, are the people bought in? Are the people bought into the methodology, the architecture? What is that you're going to do? And then getting the right people, understanding that. Then if I was rank ordering them, then to me, like the getting the processes to fit it. But you know, I find my biggest struggle is just getting people to buy in, not only to buy into what you need to do, what the strategy needs to be, but then the right people to execute on that, right? And so you can go and get Snowflake and DataOps.live and DBT and all this other stuff, but it's just technology that'll sit there on a shelf, right? If you don't
Right.
have the right people to kind of get it going and then putting that process around it. So I tend to make sure when we're going on the way is you have the right people involved, and the right people, are they going to be a resistance to what you're doing and challenging it, or are they going to be bought in and let's go and let's go in the right direction. So that's from my perspective what I see as a barrier.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're actually coming up on time already, but I want to give you a chance to. You're involved in so many things. So, what's the best way for people to follow you? What are some of the things coming up on your Snowflake Data Superhero and your Data Vault format?
Yeah.
I know there's something coming up in another week or
Yeah.
so.
So next week I will be at a Snowflake user group live in Chicago. So that will be an in person, and in that one we will be discussing data modeling. So we'll get back to this fundamentals of data modeling, and then what data modeling capabilities are organizations using in Snowflake. So that one is in Chicago, and that is with, like I said, Snowflake and SQL DBM as the I think the sponsors of that event. I can be followed on LinkedIn. I mean, I try to be pretty active on LinkedIn, depending on what's going on. I'm not sometimes as active as I want to be, but then I'll also be at Summit in what's that? A little over
June.
a month and
Yeah.
a half.
Yeah. Is it?
So
Yeah.
so
End of
I'll be at
June. Last
Summit.
week.
Yep.
Last week of June.
Yeah. Oh, and something that hasn't been, so this is kind of breaking news, but something that hasn't been out, but we will be doing as part of the superheroes, we are doing a new show called Behind the Cape, where so I will be hosting other superheroes, and we will be talking about what are superheroes doing with Snowflake out in the quote unquote real world,
Oh wow.
and what capabilities and stuff. So each week I will be having on another data superhero to kind of show their superhero powers and what they're doing with Snowflake. So a lot going on, as you said, but I enjoy talking about data in Snowflake and all kinds of other data vault. So it's great.
But the good news is there's at least two in-person events. You got
Yep.
the one coming up in Chicago, and then Snowflake Summit, which will be in person. And
Yeah.
we just came off of the in-person Data Vault conference. I'm glad to see we're all kind of getting back to that. That
Yes.
the videos and podcasts and all this and recordings are great for people who want to keep up on what's happening. But it's nothing better than being there in person, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's sometimes getting away from the two-dimensional perspective. So I start seeing, oh, you're taller than I thought. So
Or in
yeah,
my case, shorter. Yeah, you're
shorter.
not
Yeah,
not as tall as I thought you were going to be.
exactly. Yeah. No,
Gotten that one a couple of times actually.
yeah.
Well, Keith, this has been great. Thanks for
Thank you.
being my guest today, and thanks everyone who was live online and the interaction in the comments. We really appreciate that. Uh, but be sure to join me again in 2 weeks when my guest is going to be thought leader and podcaster Sanjeev Mohan. I've actually been on his podcast about a year or so ago, so I get to reverse the roles with him here in 2 weeks. And of course, be sure to like the replays and tweet, retweet, repost our LinkedIn feed on this particular podcast. And be sure to tell all your friends about the True Data Ops podcast. And they can go to truedataops.org to register so that you get the proactive notifications. So you don't have to remember which week this is. Is this a podcast week or is this not a podcast week? So you can go check all that out. All right. Well, thanks again, Keith. Great
No, thank
talking
you,
to
Ken, for
you.
having me. Yes.
Yeah. Until next time, everyone, this is Kent Graziano, the Data Warrior, signing off for now.
Bye, everybody.